You've been chair.
And care for your peers.
My sense is that people haven't had a chance to really decide how they want to. So maybe we should wait till next time and let people decide.
Well, does Justin?
I'll move to postpone until we have a fifth member, hopefully.
I'm just not optimistic we're gonna get a fifth
Well,
member. So I don't,
either next
if,
meeting or fifth member, whichever.
well, Stephanie, you okay with that?
second.
Cool. So we will postpone to the next meeting.
Great.
Yeah, that's quite. Is there any public here or online? I see none online.
Yeah, no members of the public, or the, well, I guess, do you count as are you here for the public hearing? Are you here to listen in?
I'm here to listen.
Okay.
Thank you for having me. Great. Well, moving right along ahead of schedule, update on unsanctioned encampments in the civic area, and we have Joanna Bloom here to talk to us today.
Thank you. Thanks for getting me on early, and let me just mess with my slides real quick or else I'll be really distracted the whole time. I think I have it to a place where I can say. A second. No, hang on. Oh yeah, there we go.
So this is one of the items at last month's agenda setting meeting that I wanted us to have an update on kind of what was going on with all the petitions and everything like that.
Perfect. So thanks so much for having me, and I will just run through a couple slides and then answer whatever questions you all have if that works for you. So I am Joanna Bloom. I'm a Deputy Director of Policy and Planning and Utility. And I oversee the Utilities Maintenance Work Group, which is where the public space management is housed right now. It's part of utilities, part of general fund movement, kind of housed in utilities. So we do a lot of roadshow conversations. The program, the overall program is really called the Safe and Managed Spaces Group, the SAMPS is the acronym, and it really operates as part of the larger citywide homelessness strategy. Our focus is really on public spaces, and we're not trying to solve homelessness. We realize we're addressing the symptoms of homelessness, and the larger program really has a lot more to offer in terms of solutions and services and things like that. But we are a touch point in terms of providing information. I'll go ahead and just give you some programmatic background. We have recently revised our protocols that really guide how we do our work. Super recently, within the last month or so, we've tried new protocols, so I can tell you about those. And we are seeing some preliminary results, but obviously since it's only been a month or so, we'll keep tracking what we're seeing. So SAMPS really functions, as I mentioned, as a multi-departmental approach, and the operations and cleanup team or the public space management team is always partnered up with a police officer and at times rangers. And there's always some support services in the area or with the team that when they go out and either notice or clean up. So it's really a very coordinated approach, and that coordination has really increased over the last 2 years, which has been super helpful to accomplishing anything in the program. And I can give a little bit more background on that, but certainly can't claim to be the only ones doing this work. Council did approve an expansion of the operations and cleanup team last budget cycle. And so we are just expanding our team as of March of this year. And so we're still kind of leaning into that, and there's other city resourcing constraints. But so far we are kind of a growing operation. So let me just give you a brief summary of how this all started. So, at the end of 2021, we had an outside vendor performing a lot of the cleanups we would call ServPro. And it really wasn't as coordinated as what I just described. They would kind of come do one-off cleanups, and it was really sporadic in terms of their availability because they were spread across more than just Boulder. And so we decided that we would house the team internally so that one, we could have more control over how the work was done, but then also have more control about the response times and things like that, and property storage. We've learned a lot in the 2-year journey, and we're still learning a bunch. The crowd that is camping is definitely an adaptable crowd. And so we are having to adapt and be pretty nimble in terms of our response as well, although still work within a structured framework so that we make sure we have consistency. And there's that protocol that I keep mentioning as well. When we first started in 2021, we didn't have any guidelines for how to do any of this. So it was just kind of, we would get calls and we would go to clean up. And we have since developed a prioritization criteria where we prioritize cleanups. And I'll get into that in just a minute, but that really provides the guidance for how we go about cleaning. So I keep talking about this cleanup process, and it's really more than that, but I keep labeling it that. It begins with an awareness that there's an issue, and obviously we see that when we're out in the field, and so we inform ourselves and some just through staff and other relationships, but then primarily through Inquire Boulder, we get a lot of reports through there, and we that system geolocates campsites. And then they go into our prioritization framework from there. And so once we're aware of a site, we go and inspect it. If we determine that it's a high priority site, then we move into notification. And that's where we go and we put a notice to vacate in the area. And then also in every tent that we can get to. Yeah.
Sorry, what makes something high priority?
It's a great question. I have a slide and let me try to answer that and then you can see if it touches on all of it. Okay, sure. So we'll go ahead and notice. There is the homelessness outreach team through the Boulder Police Department that does go with the cleanup crew on notification day. We're not moving people on that day. We're really just letting them know, hey, we're in 72 hours, we'll be back. You need to move along. You will be issued a ticket if you aren't moved along. And then we also have that connection to services, right? The homelessness outreach team is really focused on trying to partner up with or get people plugged in where they can as well. So that's really just an information opportunity for us. We also hand out, I can go into all the details, but we hand out trash bags and needle containers and things like that. And prior to having an organized internal cleanup team, we found a lot more needles and it was really an issue. And we've since partnered up with Boulder County Public Health, and we really seem to get a handle on that, and we see a high participation in that, and so it's really a positive from my perspective. And then after notification, we wait the 72-hour period, and we go ahead and go about the cleanup, which again is supported by BPD and other rangers. And then there is just that ongoing maintenance, right? We're just on some level, people move from place to place, and we know on some level we're dispersing people, but we do try to activate the space and have a kind of a constant presence to encourage people to move along. Okay, so you asked about the prioritization criteria. Thank you for that. So this is kind of it boiled down. You'll see that the highest priority is that reports of violence or crime. That is really a tricky one to tie to a specific location, right? If a crime happens in one place, it's hard to say, oh yes, it was this tent. And so even though that one can carry a lot of weight when we are able to identify it, it's a rarely used criteria because it's difficult to pin down locationally. So it turns out that life safety risk in a floodway and then proximity to schools and parks and things like that end up being the highest rated. The risk in the floodway is not only to those folks living in the floodway, particularly in culverts and things like that, in drainage ways. If there were a flash flood come by, those people would be in serious danger. It also, all of the property that's in those culverts and in the drainage ways also increases the flood risk for those of us around those areas. And so it's kind of dual purpose. And then equally weighted is the proximity to school and parks and things like that. We really do a geographic location and try to prioritize those areas. And then all the other things are obviously important as well. largely with the size of the crew right now, we really get to those kind of high priority ones, drainage ways in schools, but hopefully over time, as we're better resourced.
Is drainage way also same as tunnel or different than?
Different than tunnel, so it'd be creek, really a creek.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and
What's your, where do tunnels?
like an underpass, like a bike underpass.
Yeah.
You have all the talking points. I will get there too. Yeah, those are definitely in there and they fall more into the updates that we did to the abatement protocol. So I'll get to those in just a second. Okay, so what we have been seeing recently, so we did, I mentioned we originally developed a protocol in 2021 and then we've just updated it based on what we're seeing in the field. And so I'm sure some of this looks familiar to you all. Originally, when we started this work, and still to a large degree, we were looking for voluntary compliance, right? There wasn't a lot of hard enforcement happening. And I have to say our team and the police involved and everybody are so compassionate and so thoughtful and respectful about how they do the work while still setting boundaries. But that's part of the benefit, I think, of having the internal team. That being said, the voluntary compliance was way more effective. Say last fall, we were doing a lot of tours of council and things around the budget time. And we were seeing that folks would go with this voluntary compliance kind of rhythm. Kind of in January that shifted and I'm not really sure why, but we were definitely seeing, I know it's hard to see in the band shell, but we had a huge, you probably remember, a huge encampment there. That generally, it can occur now and again where people are just really reluctant to move. Combined with that, we also saw we had a spate of fires for about seven fires within a week or so. And not really sure, they kind of happened all suddenly, but that obviously raised more community concerns. And then I know too, when we've moved people and kind of like when we cleaned out the band shell, I think is, or not shortly after is when folks started kind of dispersing to the Pearl Street Mall and then trying to figure out how to manage that area because it's not a drainage way or a school, but obviously still really important. So we were just seeing a lot of things and our protocols are being less effective. And so we did go and revise the protocol a little bit. And this gets to your question about underpasses. We didn't do sweeping changes to our practices, but just enough. For example, we have that 72-hour noticing requirement right now. We notice a tent, we give them a couple of days and then we come back and that's kind of legally prescribed, but for other reasons as well. However, if there is an encampment that's in an underpass that's blocking the path and creating a danger for the folks living there and then a bike whipping around the corner, that is now listed in the abatement protocol as an exception to the 72-hour noticing. So we have used that exception 3 or 4 times in the last month, I would say, where people have called and said, hey, this, 30th and Goose is really bad. And, the team will shift to go over there and address it. And generally we've been able to be more responsive than we have in the past. So it's not perfect. We still run into challenges, but we are trying to employ that more often so that the bikeways are safer. We also tried to double down on, just being clearer about how we address propane tanks to address the fire risk and also the camping.
What's new about propane? I guess maybe my biggest concern that I had multiple people talking to me about is like, people have been compassionate and understanding. With the fires, there's like enough's enough.
Yes.
And so, especially after Marshall and everything, and like the fires that were right down by the high school in downtown.
Yeah.
Like enough's enough. So like,
For sure.
How is, when you mentioned propane tanks?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we definitely tried to clarify that in the abatement protocol and like any of this, some of it is the professional discretion of the officers or whatever that are in the field. But generally speaking, if there is a visible propane tank, we will go and take it immediately. And you can call 911 and they'll come out and take it. If it's in a tent or if you suspect there's a propane tank in a tent, that's a different ball of wax. And we have different tools that we can use to get it, but it's not an immediate, like everybody out, right? It'd be like somebody bursting into your house. Like if there's governance around that. So I just think there's a heightened awareness of it. And the CMS team, the public space management team, does take propane tanks. This is just a normal cleanup. So they are ubiquitous, particularly in the winter. People are using them for heat, but obviously they're also used for drug production. But we will take them, and we have places where we donate them to. But if they are visible, we can take them more immediately.
Were the fires that did occur because of propane? What was the cause of the fires?
I don't have all the police data as clearly, but my understanding was that there were a couple that were propane tank related, but some of them, like they showed up and responded to one and there was just a candle burning in the tent, or, little makeshift stoves. So I don't think they were all propane related. Although I would just say from my, anecdotal experience, they're pretty much everywhere. Even if it's just the little green ones that you use camping, right? They have them. And so it is a risk. And when we do find them, we do confiscate them, right? So when we do a cleanup, if you say, no, that's my toolbox and this is my, I want to take my backpack with me, great, take those things with you, but you can't take them. And I'll show you a picture on the next screen too. We did try to increase signage and things like that. Again, on some level, a sign is only as great as a sign is, but I think what we backed it up with is clarity among the team for how to enforce it.
Yeah.
And there's more consistency. And I think, the director of utilities who I report to is commonly heard saying, we've been treating and delivering water for like centuries now, and we've got that down. And this program is only 2 years old. And so we're getting better, but we're not quite as dialed as we would be. We're still figuring out kind of the lay of the land. So, this is still in its infancy, although I really do feel like we're making a ton of progress and the team is great, but it's still pretty new. So, we made a couple. Oh, the one other thing that we updated in the abatement protocol, and I don't know if it matters, but I'll mention it because it makes a huge difference to us. Is, we would see people that would, we'd go and say, hey, it's time to pack up and go. And they'd say, great, pack up, and they go like 50 feet down the path, and then they would set up. And under the previous protocol, we couldn't do anything about it. We'd have to renotice 72 hours, whatever, and then come back later. So it was a little maddening because we would just watch them go. And it was like, we can't do anything. So now we have guidelines about reoccupancy. And if people do move within a geographic area, we can ask them to move again, and then enforce on that if they're not.
Is that geographic area defined as like Boulder?
So no, I wish. So with that prioritization framework that I showed, we meet weekly and we say what we're seeing in the field, and then we look at the prioritization criteria, and then we pick an area to notice. So like this week, it was, I think it was the kayak course to 17th Street. And so we'll go notice everything in that area. And if you move within that same geographic area, that's where we'll enforce. So we primarily spend our time on the Boulder Creek corridor, sometimes Goose Creek, and then these underpasses. More of a one-off thing.
First, I wanted to thank you for doing this work. It's really hard and potentially thankless for you and emotional for many people. And so, thanks for coming to present to us. Something that you said caught my ear when you said there's city resourcing constraints for your team in particular. Is there not enough funding? And if there would be more funding for this, we would see more of the impact on the ground, or is it more systematic than that? I mean, I know it's more systematic than that, but obviously I biked here all of the Banch of the giant encampment, right? And you guys tell them to leave, and then they just come back right? And it's following them around the city, and then they move and they come back, which sounds tiring and difficult, right? And I think what we are seeing, I think we're going to get to this as like a commission, is that it's affecting the perception of the downtown, like huge impacts in the survey we're looking at. So I guess from our perspective, it's a big priority. And do you think that funding is a big issue in terms of your team, like being able to keep things, I don't know, keep things cleaner than could you do more if you had more money, or do you think it's bigger than that or different than that? Yeah, no, thanks. It's a great question. And I think,
A lot, for right now, it's not the money that is the constraint, it's
Yeah.
getting the staff to do it. And I appreciate you saying thank you. I am not out there like day in, day out cleaning stuff. And I will pass on that, you know, the appreciation because the team really does work very hard. And included that are the police officers and the rangers, the open space and folks that do it. And I think our work is contingent on having that PD support. And so depending upon, for example, if we have a team out and we have to make an arrest and the officer has to leave the site, we have to pause because it is not safe for our team to continue in that moment when the police officer is gone, right? So
Okay.
some of it, and I don't by any stretch mean to throw PD under the bus, they're wonderful and the way that they do the work is really effective. But I do think that some of it is a staffing limitation
On the police side, like if you have.
on the police side or on the enforcement side. Mhm.
Okay.
We also, I mean, we do have turnover, right? So,
Yeah.
so there is that too. I think some of it is the ability to be able to split into two teams with, I mentioned this new team that has really just been onboarded in March of this year. So this might just be an acute moment where you don't quite have all of the pieces in place, but they're coming. So we just onboarded, I think, 3 new staff and a supervisor, and we have 1 more coming. So the team all filled out will be 9. The thought is that one, yeah, but it's double what it was last year. So it's getting better,
One of
right?
the biggest issues in the city, there's a team of 9.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
but that's okay. There's not that many more for like water main breaks and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, like 10 or 11. But, yeah, so the thought being, and we're not quite there yet, although I'm very optimistic that we'll get there, is that the team can split. So that one is more on this down, this is largely the corridor that we see them. So I totally hear what you're saying about it impacting and we see it too. I will say, when we changed the protocol, I wasn't sure how much of a shift we would see. And I know the day before we started the new protocol, there were 32 tents, we counted them, there were 32 tents between like Evan G. Fine and the high school. And within a day and a half, they were all gone. And there have been some that have come back in, but nowhere near that number. There have been more, 1 or 2, and this, you know, I work over in the New Britain building, and that area has been more people sunbathing and playing in the creek and, you know, things like that. And that is a reemergence that I have not seen in a while. So there are shifts, right? It is not drastic. I do not think we will hit a point where there are no tents. This year. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't know what it will look like later, but I will say, I do think we've seen some success with the new protocol, and it's still just a little bit early to tell. And I do think once we get kind of to see if we can get the team down here focused, and then have the second team, if we can break into 2 and hit other geographic areas too, we'll be able to be a little bit more responsive. We're just not quite there yet.
But do you think that you will be hamstrung by not enough police department staff to help you?
To be
Once you
determined.
get to.
Yeah, I know the chief and deputy chief, they are working really hard and
Yeah.
they are totally supportive. And so I don't want to say the reason this isn't working is because of police, that's not it. But it can be a limitation. And again, I know that I think they're training 17 new officers from my last check, but it takes a year and a half to
Yeah,
get some of
yeah,
yours.
Yeah, I mean, not to throw anybody under any bus at all, but if we can recognize and help to
Yeah,
elevate that this is a potential bottleneck, we want to be able to do that.
for sure. We are trying to partner more with parks and open space. Parks rangers aren't fully commissioned officers, but we are trying to find creative solutions for how we can partner up with other staff.
Yeah.
To maybe just add more resources so we can continue some level of work. Where we can go. And again, the team has been wonderful in offering up people and time. And so, as of this week, I had a park ranger come out with us. So this is like hot off the presses news, and we'll have to wait a little bit to see if it.
Keep on our schedule a little bit. I appreciate your time being here. One of the goals that I have of our commission is more collaboration with other groups. So I know Chip's on his phone right now, but Chip, do you have anything that you wanted to ask to Joanna, just since she's here, and I don't know if you've gotten to talk to her before. I saw you chumming up, so I think you talked a lot.
We spent some time together yesterday and I do have a couple of questions. You mentioned you try to activate the space after the cleanup. What does that mean in your world?
So yeah, that's probably not the exact right phrase, but I will say like when we do a cleanup from here to 17th Street, like we'll work with both PD and Parks and our staff to say, hey, the farmer's market is coming on Saturday. Could you swing by on Friday and see what it looks like around the atrium, that type of thing. So it's not activating the space with events, but it is just kind of increasing patrols and area.
Okay, got it. Then the other question, the protocol, the updated protocol, specifically the reoccupancy impacts. You kind of spoke to it a little bit, but I'm curious what kind of tracking is being done on that. And one of the things, and I know this is a kind of, we're figuring this all out and it's all very new. Anecdotally, only speaking anecdotally, of late, the sweeps have had a much bigger impact on the Pearl Street. And so I imagine that makes sense. I mean, if you're squeezing the balloon and people are moving a little bit, but if they're moving out of the creek, they're coming to in large part of the mall. So I'm wondering how that's being tracked, if at all.
Yeah.
And if there's a way we can kind of help with coordinating and tracking that.
So what I do know, and I can't speak super intelligently to the police data, I do know there's a high utilizer group. So there is a real small portion of ticketed campers that are reoffenders, right? Where, you know, it like a big percentage of the tickets handed out are to this small group of people. My understanding, but correct me if I'm wrong, like we really track camps with tents. So people during the day where they're hanging out is not something that we track, but for sure there is blue tent, green tarp, whatever. I mean, that is all kind of very meticulously documented to keep in track with this, with the protocol. And we do generally, the team knows folks by name. So they know where people are going. We aren't currently tracking, if we clean up Boulder Creek here, the next hotspots, right? Except that we generally see the same people bouncing back between Boulder Creek and Goose Creek. So in terms of living, I'm not sure what the day-to-day is like.
And then one thing, I'm going to be very nitpicky here. You did mention that the 72 hours legally prescribed. It's my understanding it's policy, it's not ordinance, but it's policy based on defensible laws. So, but I think there is a distinction there.
That is true.
Highlight that. So, but thank you. I so appreciate it.
Yeah, likewise. And for sure, we're up for, I mean, I do know, and I hope you take me up on it, like the conversation that we had yesterday was about, you know, stuff on the mall and just kind of unsightliness or trash or things to dispose of. And I don't know that we have any perfect silver bullets to offer, but we are open to looking at creative options for how we can mitigate that.
That was very helpful.
Figure it out.
Just the ambassadors, are they working on that? Because like, I think I was a little, when you said we're specifically 10, if there's stuff, there's not a specific team that owns that now, it's sort of hopping around.
Well, what we were trying to understand is what we can do legally, because there's stuff and we have been,
People's stuff.
we've been given a lot of different information, mostly from police about what we can and can't do. So we're trying to get clarity on that, which is not surprisingly not that simple to get clarity on what we can legally do and what we can't legally do and what is trash and what is treasure and what is abandoned.
The attorney's office to weigh in on that.
What's that? We're talking to the city attorney.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get clarity on that.
I'm sorry if I missed this somewhere. Is there a timeline on the 24/7 shelter?
That was the next thing I wanted to understand was the day use shelter.
Yeah. Is that operational now? Is that?
No, so what I know of it is Megan Newton from Housing and Human Services is the project manager for that. And I believe it's on the end of the year timeframe to open. Is that right, Chris? I see you got it in your head. So all of the work is happening now. I know she's pretty buried, but
They picked a location. This is on topic.
Great. Well, thank you, Joanna.
Thanks for having me.
And do pass on deepest appreciation.
I will, and feel free to reach out if we can help with us. Or stuff, I'll stop sharing.
Chip, you are up next.
Oh, hi, everybody. So I have a whole lot of things to chat about, but I'll be quick. I think there might be some redundancy in the agenda later with some of the things I'm talking about, but we've been really doing a lot of work around homelessness and around activations downtown. So I'll start with activations because that's fine. We've been talking about homelessness a little bit. So summer's here, it's coming. We're doing a lot of things coming up. We had our very successful and very fun Tulip Fairy and Elf Festival a couple of weekends ago. It was packed down here. The tulips cooperated beautifully. If you haven't been downtown today or in the last couple of days, the tulips are just amazing right now. And really kudos to the parks crew for all their work on making that happen every year. I don't know, it might just be me, but it seems like this year they're just so much more vibrant. So anyway, that's my Tulip Fairy festival moment. But we are doing a number of activations. As of about a week ago, we were awarded a contract with the city downtown streets as public space program. So we are planning a number of activations. I'm going to talk through them all really quickly. I should have had this up. Give me 1 minute. We have proposed to and are planning to do a total of 8 activations throughout the summer, through the 4 months of June, July, August, September. June is tomorrow, so we're kind of racing on getting all these done. And our goal with these activations in response to the downtown streets as public space and really looking at and the recommendations that came from Yale Studios in activating, really focusing on 13th Street as an opportunity for and really their recommendations also really supported and somehow we're in many ways we're in parallel to the vision plan recommendations around the civic area and connectivity with the civic area and connectivity with CU and the Hill and this and that. So we're excited for the opportunity to kind of advance some of the goals in the vision plan and the downtown streets team goals and the parks East Bookend design information coming up. So a lot of these activations are kind of questions like what does work there in terms of programming, when, who do we get there, how do we engage other different communities to activate. So we're trying to do a diversity of events in different types of events, different times, et cetera. So here's what we're doing really quickly. We were approached by a woman who is involved with the downtown business who has produced Juneteenth celebrations in another community and is excited to do that here. So we're working with her hopefully to produce a Juneteenth celebration here, connecting her with a lot of folks in in Boulder's Black community through the NAACP and Center for African American Studies on campus and trying to get as many folks connected on that. So that would be looking at June 18th, which is a Sunday. That would consist of market, Black artists, Black makers, Black like business owners, market, food, musicians, vendors, et cetera. The other June event we're looking at is a wheel fest, and this would be all things wheels. So the idea of this, we've been partnering with a lot of our local cycle groups, bike shops, athletic companies, Cheered Paths, other folks to do their various wheel type things. We're looking at doing a bring your own roller skating rink on part of the street, doing Strider Festival. I don't know if anybody here has a kid knows what a Strider is, but if you don't, it's a little bike without pedals. So you get toddlers to bike obstacle courses, talking to some BMX ramp people that do exhibitions. So all of this is really sort of we're hurry up and planning. We just kind of started this with a week and a half ago in terms of determining what this is. We have a lot of outreach to do. So a lot of this is here's the ideas that now we're working on to implement tomorrow. So
Get some adult striders, that would be.
adult striders, that's a
Yeah.
great idea.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Is this on the mall?
This will be, sorry, I jumped ahead of all that. So in response to the recommendations for the downtown streets as public space, this is all essentially the farmers market location,
Okay,
13th
yeah.
Street between Arapahoe and Canyon. Though a couple of these opportunities, I think there will be expansion opportunities. In fact, the Wheel Festival, one of the things we're hoping to do is work with Shared Paths or somebody else to do a bike parade that could go from that space on 13th, the great cultural corridor of 13th Street, to have a bike parade that goes north, south, one or the other, or both at one point during the day, or maybe a couple of points during the day. So we have a kind of a mini family-friendly cruiser ride, as it were.
Yeah.
And that would be on a Sunday.
That's what we.
Yeah, and that's what we're looking at. And we were talking either a Friday night, the 23rd of June, or the 25th, Friday night or Sunday afternoon. And I think that the audience would be different. So I think kind of where we're looking at the program, that is probably more of a Sunday type event.
It reminds me of growing up in Philly. They used to close the street and have it to all bikes, and it would be all families around
Yeah.
the River Drive, the art museum, and like every family went, like
Yeah.
every Sunday.
And I think this is
Yeah.
kind of inspired by the kind of stuff Livia, a lot
Yeah.
of communities do that where they've closed a long stretch. We're not closing a long stretch.
Yeah.
But we're trying to kind of pretend we are, and do some bike stuff and cycle stuff. And the roller skating thing is gonna be fun, and whatever we can do, that's real. If we can create a parade thing, I don't anticipate we'll close this. 13th Street is challenging to close because there's a lot of parking access, private and public parking, but we could do a controlled stop. This is very in the early stages.
Yeah.
We're still talking to the special events office and police and other people about all of these things. But I think that's the idea, is how do we kind of make a mini Ciclavia? There's not really a street downtown that works for that. That's a long stretch. I know that happened on the East End, that's many years ago, and to some success, depending on who you ask, I suppose. But so that's kind of that idea. Moving into July, this is the one we are looking at doing on a Saturday after the farmer's market. Which there are challenges with that, but I think this will work for this. We're looking at a social dance event. So inviting Boulder Dance Coalition, Avalon Ballroom, others to do kind of brief dance lessons with social dancing, Latin dance, salsa dance, contra dance, whatever kind of social dance, maybe some dance performances from kids groups, mosh pit. Yeah. Definitely we'll have some Irish step dancing. I've got the upper half of that down pretty good.
I used to be very skeptical.
Lower half.
I'm not Irish, but I was there.
Yeah.
Age 13, but I won't be.
That's
Yeah, more.
So that's the 22nd of July, then looking at the 28th of July. And I will say these dates was really challenging because there's so much going on. There's so many other activations we're trying to kind of fit in, and there's other events that we want to leverage, and like the Wheel Festival is during Bike to Work Week, so we partner with them, right? There's other things that we're trying to avoid. There are a few Arts in the Park events happening at Van Shell this week. There's festivals, there's other things, and of course, Farmers Market is Choice Week. July 28th. The date, all these dates are fairly nailed down, but somewhat tentative. This, I'm not sure if this is a Friday or a Sunday, but we're looking at a garden party, potluck picnic in the park. We'll put out tables and chairs, linens, and maybe have some food trucks, but also invite people to bring their own picnic. And this is a nice event that ties in the park with the street. So we'll set up tables and chairs in the street, probably a long table community dinner, but it's a potluck. But partnering with the farmers market on a lot of these events to provide food, whether it's from their vendors. I think we were talking to them. They were excited about maybe inspiring some of their farmers to put together picnic baskets to sell the day before the event. But having a way to tie in the park as well as the street. So that's our picnic in the park. Okay, you're gonna love this one. Well, I love this one. In August, we're doing a Yappy Hour.
Oh, yay.
Which will be a dog event of some kind. What that looks like we will figure out, we're gonna count on all you dog people to tell us what, we're talking about kiddie pools for dogs, obstacle courses, whatever. It'll just be a fun, yeah, whatever the dog party is. And that looks like a Friday evening event.
What's the date for that one?
That's gonna be August 11th is the tentative date, and we will get all of these dates are tentative at this point, but we're trying to nail them down as soon as possible so we can start.
So is the thought to try a lot of things this summer and see what's,
Yeah.
people, see what sticks?
Yeah, and I think being informed from that, both in terms of programming, what worked. So next year we can, like, if we decide we want to do a yappy
Yeah.
hour every month or every week or whatever we learn from this.
You'll have some data. to be like,
Yeah, but and also
And then something.
how the space works. I mean, there's an extraordinary opportunity this summer. The Parks Department is working on phase 2 of the civic renovation moment. So like so this can really inform that, how the space works, what are the problems, what are the opportunities there. So that's Yappy Hour. This one I think is we had something that's not gonna work. We were talking about a welcome back CU party. There's some challenges there with date and time, but I think we were trying to look at something maybe that's geared towards CU parents to do something, but this is the late August one is still very up in the air. We knew what we were doing yesterday and now that's changing. 2 more, we're almost there. September 8th, on Friday, late afternoon, we're gonna do a pre-stampede party. So if you've been down to the Stampedes before the game, it's really fun. We get the band and the players and everybody and then it's parade and they go away. So we're gonna take an opportunity to use the street and the area out there to have a meet and greet with the players before the Stampede. So we have some time, throw around footballs, have it more of a community event that's not just watching the event, but having it more social and more activity and maybe have maybe finally take a moment to acknowledge the CU women's basketball team but we're looking at doing something before the parade, the Stampede parade.
Coach Prime dunk tank,
What's that?
Coach Prime dunk tank.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I'm sure we can get that. And then finally, the end of September, the 24th, we're doing an art day, kind of centered around the BMOCA, or not BMOCA, but one of BMOCA staff has done this Chalk for Peace event where street art. So we're doing kind of a number of visual arts activities in the street, setting up things for people to paint on. Who knows what it is? We'll reach out to studios, there's plein air folks, there's anything kind of visual art that we can do. That is the same during our Fall Fest weekend. And this is another opportunity to kind of look at 13th Street more as a connectivity, trying to thinking about how we can activate One Boulder Plaza and 13th Street south of Pearl Street a little bit. As I mentioned, there are some challenges with access to the Wells Fargo parking lot and also the One Boulder Plaza parking lot, but there's things we can do to kind of create a little bit of breadcrumbs to connect the dots between those two events. So that's where we are today with our 13th Street activations. We have a bit to figure out, but we have a great team working on it. And you'll hopefully be hearing a lot more about it very soon as we kind of nail down the details and start marketing stuff.
A random question, but for this big events that like 1 million vendors, you know, like at that Fall Fest too. Are those local vendors? Are they just anyone and everyone? I'm always wondering that.
So we do 2 big art fairs. We do, and
Okay.
then there's other festivals in the park that we do, the Hometown Fest, and I know they have.
So you guys don't
We
do
don't do those.
Okay,
But the 2 we do, the Pearl Street Arts Mall, I believe it's not exclusively for local artists, but it is a
Okay.
lot of local artists. It's also a lot of national artists.
okay,
Touring artist submissions from wherever, so it's not specific, but we do end up getting a lot of local and regionally local artists for that for sure. Fall Fest, we partner with Firefly. And that's less narrow in terms of media. It's not just fine art, it's makers, it's a lot of different things. And I think that is more local, but we work with Firefly, who does the vendors for that.
Okay,
And we do the beer garden and the stage and the performance for that.
okay.
Yeah, but it's a mix.
Yeah, I think I was, last time I went, it felt huge, the amount of vendors, and it felt also random, I would say. Like a random mix of who knows what, and I think I was a little bit disoriented about like. There was, the kids area was really like clear, and I was there with my daughter, but then the other areas, I couldn't like even know where to go or navigate. And so I just like stayed away, and I thought that was one of the challenges of some of these big festivals where like the amount of vendors and the volume of types of vendors is almost overwhelming, like there's no theme and no purpose to it, where the art feels like very definitive, like I'm gonna go and see art versus.
Right,
A
well,
massive
so
vendor,
there's two different festivals. The Pearl Street Arts Festival is much more of an arts festival.
Yeah, and I mean,
Interrupt this, and I
Yeah.
apologize to keep on target. We are well beyond time.
thanks.
And I want to
Okay.
keep us on our discussion here, because this is tangential. My
Yeah.
apologies. Going back to downtown streets as public spaces, this is all for 13th, which I think is really interesting. Has anything the public wants as Pearl? Can you talk to us about the discussions around, I know my personal opinion, but to appease the public, any discussions around West Pearl for these kinds of activations or other things?
You know, the scope that the city put out from the downtown streets and public space, kind of represented what the consultants said around doing regular activations on 13th and perhaps periodic events on the west end. And I'll be really honest, as an organization, if our stakeholders are not interested in it and it's not a priority, you know, we've really spent a lot of time on the vision plan. And so we wanted to kind of work on the goals of the vision plan. The West Pearl, it wasn't part of that, really isn't part of that. And I think if other people are interested in doing events on the West End, we can have that conversation. For us, we've heard loud and clear from the West End restaurants that they don't want to close the street, that you know, we did part of the, we are doing some other activations as part of a commercial district activation program that we're working with the city on. And we did the Alcree Festival in the fall. We're doing the West End Race, and we're doing outdoor movies. And there probably our placeholder festival in fall will utilize some of the West End. We're not doing much beyond that. You know, I think there are some people with some interest in trying to do some things on the West End. For us, if we're going to do an event in the business district, we really want the businesses to at least be on board, if not, you know, like, and there's no interest there for them. So appeasing the community is, you know, we work for the business community, and I think hopefully taking the understanding what the community's wanting and desiring gathering spaces and engagement, and kind of figure out where we can do that. We're also a big part of what we're really looking at separate from this summer is activating the Pearl Street Mall. We have lost a lot of the population on the Pearl Street Mall in terms of office users and weekday stuff. So we're really looking at, you know, activating the West End on the weekends is a very low priority for us. Activating the Pearl Street Mall on weekdays is dire, right? And so that's kind of where we're focusing our efforts, and this work for 13th Street, you know, because we understand it makes sense, it supports long-term goals. The West End, we're not driving that. Does that help?
I was looking for that answer, something like that. Yeah, thank you. I know my personal opinion, so I'm trying to
Sure.
allow.
Yeah, I think the public's fixated on that now, but maybe we start generating
Yeah.
more activity on the other corridor then. I think we need, yeah.
One of the things that I think after our last the planning meeting we all had together was how to communicate to city council more. And so I'm interested in the other commissioners, if you wanted to end up writing like a letter of support for any of these types of things, whether it's for the work that Joanna and her team are doing, any communication to the support for doing more on the 13th versus West End. If we wanted to ever take a position along such things, to make some sort of resolution to pass to council to say, we like what's going on or anything else, I think we can talk to council more and make our voices heard.
I'd definitely be in support of sharing something about increased support for police staffing for Joanna and her team. I think the activations, they are what they are for this year, and we should just wait and see what happens and let the good people that are going to put these events on.
Oh, no, we're doing it.
Yeah, no, you.
Oh, I think just the good people.
Oh,
Sorry.
right. Well, you have staff, right?
Yes.
Just shit. Yeah.
That's my sense, is that we should be selective about what we.
Council.
Yeah, I'm not sure, I think is my answer, because reading the survey, and I know we'll get to it, like. I had some takeaways of which I feel like are connected to the maybe two or three big issues that I saw in there that people kept bringing up, which are all this interconnected web around the downtown and people not feeling safe or people feeling like it's too expensive to buy lunch or to just do anything. And I think the problem feels so big that I don't even know like what we would write yet until there was like another key program that we're like, let's support this XYZ thing and kind of amplify other people's efforts. And I think Joanna's feels like one of them around the Civic Center area, because is that technically part of our district?
Mhm.
Yeah, so I think that feels like it could be a focus thing that we support, but again, like I didn't hear a definitive answer, like, do they need more money? Do they need more staff? Like, are they waiting? So it would feel too high level to be effective potentially at this
Well,
point.
keep this in the back of your minds, because this is one of the things that I think we as a commission wanted to do is communicate to council more. Even if it is. I'd rather communicate some than none.
Yeah.
Personally, too. We are behind schedule, so anything else, Chip, that you want
Yeah,
to?
just really quickly, and I apologize because I'm so excited about this summer that I just go on and on. We have Downtown Boulder Partnership has been working for the last almost 6 months with the Boulder Chamber and Visit Boulder on getting to a policy framework for homelessness solutions from the business community. We've hosted a number of forums. We made a field trip to Denver and learned a lot from a lot of people, and we came out with a set of policy recommendations. Each of our boards are in the process of approving it. My board is the final board to approve it, which will be tomorrow or Thursday. But once we do that, I will forward that to this group. And it really kind of speaks to a lot of what we are recommending and some of the, after a lot of learning and a lot of input from everybody who would talk to us, from service providers, on-house folks themselves, criminal justice, the courts, the DA, the jail, everybody we've talked to, people in Denver. So we came up with a kind of policy set. So we'll share that with you. And just to your point, Don, that might be something this group can get behind and support of, because it was really, I mean, I will say it was a very thoughtful process. And I think we ended up with a pretty good document that we didn't all start on the same page. And we came to, here are the commonalities that we can all get behind.
When do you think you can share that?
I can share that with you Thursday afternoon. Right, I mean, I could share a draft early, it's just won't be approved.
Is that something Chip can share directly to us, Chris, or does he have to send it to you guys and you distribute it to us?
Is it a public document?
It can be once we approve it, it will be some version of it. It's
Yeah, as long as it's public, we can distribute it directly to the commissioners. But we're also happy to distribute it to everybody.
yeah, either way.
I just wanted to have an action plan so we
Yeah.
knew how to do it.
Yeah, that'd be good.
With that in mind, I had a procedural question for Chris. I know we can't have group conversations outside of our meetings, but we can have one-on-one conversations. What happens should we have an email conversation? Let's say we want to discuss this and say, let's write this letter and we Google Doc it together, or we write a Word doc and pass it back and forth. And we like say, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And instead of everyone going through like me as a central person or the two of them talking or where, what happens?
So anything that is discussed over email with more than one other commissioner needs to be publicly shared. So it requires a lot of work on our end to then clean it up after that's all occurred. So it's certainly our strong preference that there's not a lot of.
But waiting 2 months to have a feedback on something that happens 2 days after this meeting.
Well, and so individual feedback is okay, but if you're wanting a formal body or you operate as a body, and when you're emailing all together, you're operating as a body.
Let's say that I start a Word document, or Susan does. She sends it to me, I get my feedback, and then I send it to Justin. He adds his comments. It's a collaborative document. We're maybe having all our voices in one document.
Sure.
Can we do that?
Yeah, however, I would suggest that that would maybe be better monitored, but through the secretary as opposed to that approach, just so we can be really sure that that's how it's happening.
This is, I feel constrained in our efficacy by meeting, on one hand, having a group session every once a month means more for you guys and stuff, but it'd still be nice to talk. So maybe if we do have a resolution or something we want to talk about, we can, I say something, we send it to Lisa. Lisa, could you distribute this? And then you go boom, 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 and send it to the individuals. Is that how that would kind of?
And then we reply to Lisa.
Right.
Cool. That's the answer I was looking for.
Thanks, Tim. Versus waiting 2 months. Yeah,
Yeah, great.
yeah.
Thank you for that. Kip, were you done? I didn't mean to cut you off.
I am done. The only other thing I will add, maybe Chris will speak to it, just wanted to announce that we've expanded the ambassador program on the Hill District, which is very good, and this group should be aware of it. I think it'll help up there. We have a dedicated full-time team lead on the Hill. And that was partly into contribution from the universities.
Is that team, do you feel like all the teams are sufficiently staffed, or do you feel like it could still use more?
Staffing is like breathing. Oh, in terms
No,
of
I mean-
funded or staff?
Well, I was on the mall on Friday night and there was a pretty
Yeah,
there's not an incident, but people were very nervous and afraid, and I didn't see anyone around, or else I would have kind of got them. And I was
yeah.
like, where is everyone?
We could
Yeah.
always use more.
Yeah.
I mean, at night in particular, we have normally two staff on
Total.
after certain periods, so.
Well, it was like at 7.
Yeah, that's about when we drop off.
Okay.
And it depends on days, of the week.
Okay.
So we could always use more. I tell you, my personal opinion, I think we need more outreach. Too, our team does a lot of kind of homeless outreach, but they're very limited in their scope, so I think that's big,
Well,
but we could always use more.
I think it was just
as
more like
everyone.
presence is meaningful, even if they don't do anything.
Yeah.
Actually, I feel like there was no one around, no police, no anyone around, and there was someone acting like a monkey and like running around and scaring children, and it was a lot of parents were like very upset by it, and there was no one there, and so I didn't feel like, we didn't feel a supportive
Yeah.
presence, and I was fine. I just picked up my children and like moved away, but
Yeah.
I felt like even if they couldn't do anything, if they were there, the public would have felt assured that there's
Yeah.
someone there.
I mean, yes, that we can always use more,
Yeah,
2 or even 3 people. It's a big district because they're covering
Yeah.
from Lolitas to, in the civic area and kind of a lot of space, so. We do now have rangers downtown, which helps.
Yeah.
Rangers are able to write citations. We're starting to see them finally, so it helps. But the only more is, I think it's an effective program, so more of it.
I think more is better. And I think where my opinion is about like feel like we need to spend money, a lot of money on this, like the public is afraid and uncomfortable coming downtown, like, and presence helps.
Yeah.
And like this whole survey that we read is like 50% of it is, I don't come downtown anymore.
Yeah.
Because of these incidents. And I think that people are a little, maybe, we hope they won't be as afraid, but I think presence helps. Non-police presence too. We talked about that being a
Yeah.
way to not bring force into it, but help people to feel safe
Yeah.
without causing incidents.
It works well.
Yeah.
It does work.
You said there's a drop off at 7. Is that like when you drop down to 2 faster?
2 or 3 on yeah,
And that goes until like 11.
11. Yeah. I think that's right. I'm honestly, I'm not in the weeds on the scheduling, but
And could we, like, if we would support increasing funding for the program, would that do anything? I mean, what's
there are
your,
more staff. Sure.
and does that come from down to Boulder Partnerships? or the
So
city?
right now, it's a split cost. We pay about 40% and the city pays about 60% of the overall program. And we both the city and the business improvement district pay a lot of in kind as well. We provide in kind in management. The city provides space and other support. So our budget's maxed on this. And
Yeah.
I know the city has a lot of priorities, but it's, it's.
I think it's such a great program because it's not police, which obviously there's a lot of downsides of having police in this sort of setting. And it makes people feel safe and it's cost effective because of they're not very skilled staff. They're not very expensive, I imagine, but
They're
like,
very skilled.
they're very
but
skilled,
they are
but
a
not
lot
police
cheaper than
officers,
police,
right?
yeah.
In terms of the cost of that. So this feels like some type of program that we would support because it's really high return on investment.
Well, let's think about that as part of our.
Yeah.
I do want to move on, just due to
Thank you.
time.
Thank you.
Consent agenda. Did anyone have comments on the consent agenda? I had one question. In the outdoor dining section, it mentioned how many people had signed up again, and I was just confused with the way it was written. My obtuse reading of it was that it had 23 people's businesses signed up last year for outdoor dining. This year, 9 restaurants signed up. Is that
Correct,
correct
so
reading?
23 are currently participating in the program from the previous round and 9 additional applicants.
Oh, 9
So two-
additional.
Two just withdrew, so 7 actually is
So does that mean we're at?
30. And they're approved.
So it's increased.
Yes.
Okay, because the way it was written made it sound like we went from 23 to 7.
Oh, no.
It's and that's why I was like confused or the way it was written. I was like, oh my God, we had a massive drop off. It's actually
It's increasing.
feedback is good. More people are doing.
They look really nice. I mean, so nice. I think you guys did a really good job. I wanted to affirm you that like. It looks so much more put together and professional and like
It's more uniform.
more uniform, but also stylish at the same time. So I think it sounds like a successful program. Nice work. Yeah.
Feedback's been good.
In general, yeah, for the most part. It's been good. We haven't done any official survey or anything, but.
When the businesses are a little salty. All right.
But then moving on from the.
One question on commissioner recruitment. Do we know if we have any applicants?
We do have an agenda item later. I don't know, Lisa, if you have anything to share right now, but maybe we can.
Okay, you can address it later. It sounds good.
Nothing else. Moving on, to fund financials. And we also have a budget review later as well. So maybe we'll hold off on that, hearing that's okay.
If
So
we can address questions about the fund financials.
I think that's when my question comes up. So
That's fine.
let's hold it all till then. Gateless, we are scheduled 45 minutes for this. Anything we can do to
Well,
more quickly?
yeah, it helps that we don't have members of the public here for a public hearing. We wanted to make sure we had enough time just in case we had folks here, because this is when they would comment after our presentation. So Sam is here to present on the materials that were provided in your packet. So she does have some slides to go through, and then we do have a formal vote that we need to have the commission for. Sam?
I'll try to make it a little bit shorter where I can. So for tonight's presentation, I'm going to give a brief overview of the Gateless experience. I know you've heard a little bit about it, but just to recap. And then we'll review the financial analysis for the proposed fee changes. We'll have a public hearing if any public show up. And then commissioners can have a discussion and move to formal motions. So what is Gateless? It's a garage without a gates. I think you guys get the picture here. We've been working over the last year to make this happen with our selected vendor, Metropolis. We have a representative in the room tonight, so if any questions come up, we do have some additional support there. The user experience in the new Gateless system, users drive into the garage, they'll find a parking spot, they'll sign up for an account with Metropolis one time, and then they'll drive out when they're ready to leave, and that ends their visit. For every future visit to any of the 5 KG garages, users are automatically greeted with the welcome text from Metropolis, which will indicate that their parking session has begun, and all they need to do to end the session is drive out. Pretty slick. This is an example of what the web-based application will look like for registered users. So it's nice that there's also a map in there so that users will remember where they parked, which has been an issue in the past.
Is there a way to pay without going online? I'm thinking of my mother,
There is going to be a text to pay option.
so like no phone at all.
No phone at all. There's not going to be an option there. I mean, ahead of time, if she wanted to get set up, she could either visit or call our customer service staff, and they can walk the person through getting an account set up. But other than that, those are our options.
Never coming downtown again.
Well, I
normally
mean,
park
you
with
can still
park
park on street.
Yeah.
On street, there's still plenty of kiosks available. Still share parking.
Give us her license plate and then your credit card number, and we'll get her signed up.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good idea.
And the first couple of weeks too, and I think I'll get to this in the presentation, we'll have a really heavy staff presence so that they'll be there getting people signed up and helping people use the application. Validations is one of the really interesting features of the Metropolis platform. So businesses interested in providing parking validations can sign up for an account with Metropolis and then offer these QR codes to their customers. Businesses can manage all of what they want to do for validations directly through the online portal. There's the QR code, and then for users who are who don't want to use the QR code, the business can actually go into the back office, type in the license plate, and validate their parking session. So a little more white glove that way if the business chooses to do that.
Do businesses want to do that? Have they expressed interest in doing that? Or you?
Well, validations are very popular amongst businesses currently in the garages.
In our garages?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
our garages currently, we have a validation program where we're still exploring on-street validations. That's a whole separate topic, but they are popular for the garages and.
And then the businesses eat it.
They pay for, it, yeah. They're essentially paying for their customers' parking.
So citations in the current gated systems, the gates themselves act as enforcement because leave until you pay. There'll be 3 components to our enforcement of the new system. First, obviously, is educational. So we'll have well-placed instructional signage throughout the garages. We'll have, as I mentioned, our staff as well as Metropolis staff on site for the rollout for, the first week or so to make sure that we're doing that outreach and making sure people feel comfortable with it. And then additionally, we'll have an automated component to enforcement. So because it's all a camera-based system, the camera will capture a picture of the license plate and we can issue citations directly through the DMV kind of tracing to the user's address. And then The third is, if there's repeat offenders who are consistently not paying, a hot list can be generated so that our enforcement staff can take further action.
Do you know what the typical rate for, I guess, Metropolis is for people like not paying?
So
Is it high?
it's not, so in terms of, I can't say across all of the industry because I don't know. What we've heard is from a similar example of a garage. I think it was like 10% non-compliance with payment. So supposedly that's quite low for these types of systems. I'm not sure across the industry in general, but
Do we have data from Boulder Junction about that?
it's complicated because Boulder Junction is a co-owned garage and there's a lot of hotel users there that are whitelisted, so they're not paying. So like the transactions that we see don't represent how much the garage is being utilized. So I could tell you like how many citations were issued last year, and I think it was to the tune of like 6,000 or something like that. I'll have to look in my notes. But compared to the transaction,
With
they-
postal parkers.
no, that would be after like the hotel parker, anything would be voided. But we don't know how, like, we don't have good data on like how many times people entered the garage. We know how many transactions there were, but not how many people were in there because there's all these people who aren't actually paying for parking to use that garage. So it's not a good comparison, unfortunately. We did look into that.
So does like Metropolis do the overhead for all the citations, or is that gonna be done by the city? Because that seems very expensive and distracting to have to write and manage the citation process when there's currently 0 citations from
Right.
a gate garage.
Well, it's still one of the items that we're actually actively negotiating at this
Okay.
time, so I can't give you a precise answer. But I can tell you that it's going to be automated as much as possible, so it won't be like city staff going and writing out a ticket every time. One thing that we will have access to, city staff will have access to the Metropolis end platform, so they can go through the garage and see if there's anyone who hasn't signed up for an account. And then put like a piece of paper under their windshield that's like, here's how you sign up. So there's that soft enforcement component too that we can use. And I think we're hopeful that, we'll have pretty good compliance. I mean, the tickets as well, like the citations themselves, we're hoping that they'll look like something like what you'll get when you are caught by one of those red light enforcements or the speed enforcement, where it has the City of Boulder logo and, looks really official, so people.
Yeah, I
Is
mean,
there the outcome for not paying? Because there's always conversations
Right.
on Reddit as to like, do I need to pay my photo red light camera? Fine.
Well, that's where this hot list kind of comes into play because we have like stop law lists and things like that, where if you have a certain amount of unpaid tickets, we can tow your car. So, the enforcement
So there's a
officers.
grace period and then you're like over the line and.
if you
Pretty
need to
much.
pay a ticket, yeah. The law.
Can I need to pay?
I'm sorry to pause, but Lisa, we have 4 chats that I have not noticed. Is that something we need to look at for
Yeah.
public stuff?
Lane, that Lane was commenting on some details on events earlier.
Okay, so we're good. Sorry to interrupt.
So you're not worried about the increased overhead, because it sounds like that's a downside.
We have an option of
Okay,
Sparking handles 100% of it.
Yeah.
And,
Metropolis.
or sorry. Yeah. That was- Metropolis handles 100% of it. And so we're in negotiations of understanding how much they're gonna lean on us, because we also want to make their operation as efficient as possible, because there is a cost associated to it. So either there's a financial component to it, or there's, because we do enforcement in the garages currently. We do, there are folks that hit the call button every time saying they don't have their credit card and so we
that
do.
costs money, and that's a factor.
And we track them down and we get their license plate information, and send them citations. So they're, so that's the nuance that we're not exactly, we haven't signed a contract yet to explicitly say what the approach is going to be, but it could be entirely on Metropolis, or pieces of it, could be involving city staff.
And we've factored in some of the non-compliance into our financial analysis, so you'll see that we've accommodated for that, I guess, in our analysis.
Are you sharing that or?
I'm gonna be sharing a high level, the nitty gritty I can get into if we really need to. I have like a slide that, but we'll see what questions you have at the end. In addition to the gateless infrastructure, we are recommending the purchase of a parking guidance system. This is also called a PGS, so you'll hear me refer to it as PGS. For 1,500 Pearl, St. Julian, and 1,100 Spruce garages. It's a series of cameras or sensors which determine how many vehicles have entered or exited the different levels within the garages. So there'll be digital signage like what you see. So when you drive in and you're faced with the decision of where do I turn left or right, or go up or down, there'll be that digital signage saying there's this many spaces in this direction and this many spaces in the other direction. It'll just help you make a decision. And it's just a really nice kind of customer experience feature for the garages. So installation of the new gateless system will result in changes both for customers utilizing the garages as well as the community vitality department operations. There are both savings and expenses associated with the change. Some of the savings include the cost of operating and maintaining the current gates, the physical tickets and RFID cards, and the 24/7 on-call customer service. Some of the expenses associated with the new system include the installation fees, new signage, additional customer service and enforcement support for education, marketing and communications, and the maintenance of the new PGS system, parking guidance system. The biggest change for users will be the associated transaction fees that Metropolis charges for utilization of their fee-based platform. And those are detailed on the top of this slide. On the left side of the slide, underneath that, I have all of our current parking rates. And then on the right side is the pricing in the garage with the new Metropolis transaction fees on top of that. So you can kind of see the delta there. And we can come back to the slide because I'm imagining there will be questions about this. But I want to go over the financial analysis and the three scenarios that we've looked at. So we conducted a financial analysis to understand the implications of the transaction fee on top of the city's current parking rate structure. The analysis evaluates various options for adjusting the price of garage parking to potentially offset a portion of the transaction fee for users. Staff analyzed 3 different scenarios for reducing the cost of the first hour of parking in the garages to determine whether to offset or partially offset the new transaction fees. These are compared in the table on this slide, along with the cost for on-street parking. And that also underneath that is the new on-street high demand parking, which is part of the performance-based pricing initiative that we rolled out just about a month ago. So the 3 scenarios are scenario 1, we pass the full transaction fee, the 99 cents, along to the user. Scenario 2 is we reduce the cost of the first hour of parking in the garages by 49 cents, which essentially subsidizes the transaction fee by half. And scenario 3, which is we reduce the cost of the first hour of parking by 99 cents, which essentially subsidizes the transaction fee entirely. So those are the 3 scenarios that we looked at.
Plus there's the 45 cents per transaction in addition to that. I'm
No,
not sure
so
what
that's
that
for,
asterisk meant, really.
yeah, sorry, that's really small. That's what the transaction fee is when you use Park Mobile on street. So Park Mobile is only for on street.
Okay.
And slowly we've been seeing a shift over time of people paying instead of on the kiosk, more on Park Mobile. It's about 50-50 right now, but it's changed really dramatically, especially in areas like in Chautauqua. Like when we started the camp program, it was like 70% paying on kiosk, 30% on Park Mobile. And right now it's totally flip-flops. So people are willing to pay for that convenience.
I don't think they know that there's I've never known there's a transaction fee. And if I
Well-
did, I probably, I think I wouldn't do it.
I mean, there's something to be said for the fact that people don't
Ignorance is bliss.
recognize that there's an additional fee.
If you tell people that there's a transaction fee, I think they're annoyed, but
If that's built in.
if it's built in, then you don't really know.
Well, so the transaction fee is going to be on top. It'll be like
Yeah.
a separate line item and we're gonna have posted signs for it outside the garages, but I'll just continue and then we can, or not.
Maybe let's just later, and if so, tell me, so that's fine, but at 99 cents per transaction, how many transactions happen every year? How much money are we giving to Metropolis for with this 99 cent fee? And again, if you're gonna address it later, then we can wait, but just curious.
I can pull that. I think the assumptions that were in the model currently are close to 500,000, so it's about 540,000 is ballparking. Obviously, those are fluctuating as people are coming back downtown, getting into the garages. So the model is a combination of transient parkers or people who are just coming for the day versus permitted, but both of those scenarios do have fees associated with them, the 99 cents for a transient and the 4.99 for the permits.
It's a big budget item.
After analyzing both the expenses and savings associated with changing to the Metropolis platform, staff recommending adoption of scenario 2, which would lower the cost of the first hour parking by 49 cents. It's recommended because it's A, the most revenue neutral option, and B, because it's in line with what's charged by the Park Mobile app to pay for on-street parking. Also, it still positions the garages as the best deal in town for parking sessions lasting 2 hours or more in duration, which reinforces, what we've been trying to teach people, which is that on-street parking is a really great option for short-term parking sessions, whereas the garages are where you want to go for your longer-term parking sessions. Additionally, over time, this adoption of scenario 2 will still result in revenue growth for the garages, as many of the costs associated with this transition are one-time fees for installation. So, as revenue grows over the years, it can continue to be reinvested in KJIT and in other initiatives that are really important to the commission.
They all eat it in the first hour. Were any ideas explored to like amortize it over more than 1 hour? If we're saying like garages are good for longer time parking, instead of giving them the full money for if they leave within 1 hour, what about doing it like the longer you stay, the more we pay?
Well, and I think what we're suggesting is that we're subsidizing the fee by reducing the cost for an hour parking. So we could consider like spreading that out over 2 hours, like first hour parking is 50 cents, second hour parking is 50 cents, third hour parking goes back to the $1.25, and then there's still a 99 cent fee on top of that. So if that's something that the commission wants to entertain, we can entertain that. We were basing our analysis off of just the first hour of parking, because everyone will pay at least that first hour, right? If they're using the garages.
So what you're saying is like, if they get, I'm sure there's a grace period, like you drive in, you drive out.
15 minutes free, yeah.
15.
Mhm.
So anybody that parks there after 15 minutes, we're collecting the first hour, no matter what, essentially.
No,
No,
but if you stay longer than 15 minutes, you will have a 99 cent transaction fee.
Okay,
Yes,
so
you need to
at
pay for
least
your
the
parking,
fee.
and so you're paying at least that 99 cents.
okay.
Because there is going to be some transaction. So if we were to entertain
But like if somebody,
extending our subsidy to more hours, then somebody who's staying for an hour is going to pay more than they had been used to. Whereas what we're trying to do is kind of level out that first hour. So over time, it's almost in scenario 2, the same as what you're paying for.
the 30-minute and the 45-minute parker are paying the fee regardless.
Right.
So we're still I don't know, we're still collecting and kind of subsidizing some of this further. Or longer term parking by those shorter term. parking.
Right, and so then the more if we were to spread the subsidy over more hours, the folks who are staying less than an hour is going to be, a bit more painful for them.
Right.
In the amount that they.
But in a way, that's what maybe what I'm trying to like. The longer you stay, maybe the more you're spending down here. So let's go with the 49-cent one, just for easy math, 50 cents. First hour, we give you 25 cents off. Second hour, we give you another 25 cents off. And then we give you 50 cents over 2 hours instead of 50 cents in 1 hour. That way, instead of. Some people may not hit it. They only leave within 1 hour, so we're not eating. So we're only giving them 25 cents off versus 50 cents off.
And I do want to make sure that when we say 50 cents off, somebody still has to pay the full 99-cent transaction. So it depends on how much KJ wants to subsidize for the Parker.
In a way, what I'm trying to say is like, the longer you stay, we'll subsidize it more. We'll subsidize it 25 cents the first hour, to 25 cents the second hour for kind of accounts. I'm generally like scenario 2, but I just wondered if we could, like, instead of giving all the money back in the first hour, that full subsidy in the first hour, we could split it.
Right.
Spread it.
Reason why I like 2 is because numbers are rounded. The first one is horribly annoying. Like I would be so pissed off if I had a ticket like for $3.49. I was like, what? Like just be $3.50, you know? Like I think there's something psychologically about being under $2 that's really important, and it also being like a kind of common amount. So that's actually why I like 2 and why I think 1 is no, definitely not. Which is, it's a weird answer, but the perception of parking price is something that I think about. And I don't think people think parking is that expensive.
So when you.
But the
look at
over $2 thing.
It'll still look unrounded because the $1.75, I've like split out, like I've added them together, but realistically, it's gonna be like, 49 cents for the first hour plus 99 cents in fees. Or maybe it's 51 cents. So but then what the person pays is gonna be the $1.75, but they'll see that transaction fee separately.
You're like legally bound to show it to them or something? Like why are
Like
you
in this-
breaking?
and for
why
the
are you breaking
signage.
it out? I guess, I don't see it. Do you have to break it out? Does it just?
So Metropolis provides the platform. I don't know that they have examples where you just pull it all into one.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah. Psychologically, it's like, it feels like you're overcomplicating something to have one thing, parking, and then have a transaction fee plus another fee, like.
It's just flat rated.
And like, I think people really like flat rates that are like $3 to park here for an hour,
So, and to get a little bit, so we can
Yeah.
talk with them about that. We really need to make sure we're getting to as a decision on the fee structure. One thing that drove staff in the development of scenarios is this concept that driving or parking in the garage is the most affordable option. So just wanted to acknowledge that, so the suggestion of spreading the subsidy out over 2 hours. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that means that in this scenario, the scenario 2A would be first hour is $2. $1.90. Yeah, round $2, and then the second hour is $2.75. Does that still meet enough of the philosophy around the garages being the most affordable option? Is that an appropriate driver for our decision-making process? And something that you'd like us to entertain?
And I think that's worse because I'd rather park on street net. Anything else, like frankly, the garages smell like urine and are dark. And I think that's part of the problem. It's like we want it to be an attractive place. And if the price is higher than noticeably higher than on street or the same as on street high demand, I don't think we can compete with that. So I'm supportive of keeping it lower.
And maybe let's let Sam finish her presentation. I do know that we have some suggestion motion language, I think was included in your packet. We have some for you. And then if there's some amendments that we'd like to entertain, great.
Okay, one last recommendation, which is on the citation fees, because this is something that's gonna be a kind of a new introduction to the garages. We are recommending maintaining a $30 fee for non-payment violation in the KG garages for consistency and experience and expectations. This is the fee that's charged in Boulder Junction Depot Square Garage. And also it's the base fee for most violations for on-street parking, which currently are on a graduated fine schedule, but that $30 is the first instance. So that's our second recommendation. And then quickly, I'll go over next steps for the project. We'll be executing the contract hopefully very soon. Preparing a comprehensive communications plan to notify the public of the coming changes, installing and testing the cameras to ensure functionality, transitioning our permit holders onto the new Metropolis platform, installing new signage in the garages, and finally removing the gates and transitioning to the Metropolis platform on October 1st. So you have 3 questions for the Downtown Management Commission. And the first one I'll ask and get your feedback on. The second 2 will be, you can ask me questions, then we'll go into the public hearing. And if there is any public, and then we'll move to formal motions. So my questions are, does DMC have any questions or feedback about the proposed next steps for the gateless implementation? Does DMC support staff's recommendation on of adopting scenario 2 and lowering the cost of the first hour in the garages by 49 cents? And does DMC support staff's recommendation of adopting a citation fee of $30 to maintain consistency of fines across the city's parking assets? And if you need me to return to a previous slide, let me know, because there's a lot of numbers on them and I know it's hard to keep them all in mind.
To be honest, I'm struggling with this.
Yeah.
The return on investment's not clear to me. It's a lot of money. And I know that this is something you've been working on for a while, but I guess I don't personally see that this is the best use of funds.
It's about $500,000 a year.
It's a lot of money.
And that's the new transaction fees, right? We're not going to be paying Metropolis that amount of money. That's what they'll be making off of the transaction fees that are coming from the users themselves.
But if we subsidize it by 49 cents, we're spending $250,000.
Well, at this point, and again, we're still in contract negotiations, there is a share of transaction fee above. I think right now, the current negotiations at 250,000 transactions that the city would get a 60% share and 40% from Metropolis. So it's not just the straight math. And so those are some of the considerations that we're certainly looking into to make it seem.
What are our current expenses with the current method? How much are we spending right now a year?
So going high level through kind of some of the elements that Sam kind of talked about, we've got credit card fee transactions, tickets that have magnetic strips on them, the gate repairs or maintenance staff, working with our park on call, which is who you call when you can't get your credit card to work, those types of things, the RFID cards for our permitted folks, just the services that actually provide the gates in connection with our point of sale system. And so those are the expenses that we're looking at. It's kind of tricky to pinpoint a single number that's going into all of those because there is a share across the districts on some level of that. But and as far as expenses that we're looking at, we've got the one-time fees associated with Metropolis coming through the PGS system, any marketing to make sure that the public is well aware of these changes and has access to get signed up. And then again, kind of some of the maintenance, enforcement, customer service considerations. And so what we did is try as best we can to make it revenue neutral. So look at how much are we going to save from our current operations and how much are we picking up. So from our cost expense, scenario 2 that Sam has presented brings us as close to revenue neutral from a true expenditure perspective. Certainly it's similar to what you just brought up, Commissioner Trees, as far as people don't know that they're paying that 45-cent transaction on the street with Park Mobile. Maybe there's something more we can do to help share that information, but it's not something that goes into the city's budget. It's something that's a transaction.
So this project is not the city's neutral in terms of budgeting on this. That was, it seemed like I couldn't get out of that, like the return on investment it's neutral. We're just trying to like shift over some of the.
If we adopt scenario 2, it's neutral.
If we adopt scenario.
In scenario 1, we would be revenue positive. In scenario 3, we would be losing revenue, at least in the first year.
Okay.
And so that's why that was part of the decision to recommend scenario 2, because we're not going to be losing a ton of revenue by subsidizing the cost of the transaction fee by half for transient users.
The public's paying for this, yeah, largely in increased parking fees.
Correct.
Okay.
The users.
The users, yeah, the users, okay.
And that's revenue neutral over out of the gate, essentially.
Out of the gate. And then it will, yes, out of the gate. And then will have the potential to have some revenue positive implications for future years, knowing that there's a lot of one-time expenses, which I've pulled the slide up to kind of.
And that's kind of based on usage as it is now and using numbers similar to that to project out.
Right.
Years.
And we did look at, there's going to be a little bit of drop in revenue from some non-compliance. We factored that in.
And you're looking at compared to last year's numbers with like people
We're
working
looking
from
at,
home and.
yeah, we're looking at 2022. We were kind of basing that on 2022 numbers. So we're hoping
That
that'll.
makes a lot more sense, thanks.
Is there a mechanism for the permits, for permit sharing?
There's a lot of different flexibility, and it's something that as soon as we have a pen contract, we'll get into the details, but there are enterprise accounts that allow for flexibility and folks being able to use a permit. So the permit would be set up so that one person can use it. Once the permit's been used, anybody who else comes in on that, maybe there's 3 different license plates on a permit. Once one triggers it, then those 2 are gonna have to pay. But as long as it's just number 2 or number 3 and they're the only user that.
And that's true for the enterprise accounts. I don't know if that's true for like individual permit holders. So that's just like I'll point out, but yeah.
Okay.
Sorry if I'm getting into it.
No. It seems like business that I used to work for shared permits, and it seems like with people not coming to the office every day, it would be a selling point to businesses to be able to share permits, so you're not spending money on a permit that's not being used.
So do we have enough to move ahead on this?
Can I ask one quick question, the Metropolis representative? How long is that rollout period usually where you have someone on premise?
90 days.
Oh, okay. Significant. Okay.
But there is no way for Susan's mom to pay. Like there is, like, if you don't have a phone or you're
And once you're
like
signed up,
my parents, if technology.
Once you're signed up.
once you're signed up with the system, you never need to engage again, as long
Yeah,
as
my
we
parents
have.
can't sign up, like my
I
parents.
guess
You
maybe
can sign you're welcome
That's
to
not
sign.
happening either. They're gonna visit for like a weekend and yeah.
I feel like
can you, I guess
if
that's,
you only do it once,
if you can attach somebody to your account, like multiple licenses to your account,
yeah.
you can maybe set up your family members, and I understand that correct? It's kind of like a mini enterprise account, I guess, if we're using that terminology.
Family.
Yeah,
Well, I think education, things like that are gonna be important, like don't have a phone, here's what you do. But people aren't just like.
Drive fast.
Luck.
I mean, because if they, if our Metropolis staff is on site, they'll probably have an iPad that they can use to help people sign up if those people don't have a phone. So if they catch them in the first 90 days, there's other outreach opportunities that we're looking into to try and get out into the community, get the word out so people could sign up in advance as much as possible. So those are things we're gonna be looking into for our communications engagement plan that will be developed shortly.
I guess bottom line, there's no way to have a kiosk there where you can still just go punch in your number.
We did try to negotiate on that point, and there's just not a way that works reasonably well with the Metropolis system, unfortunately.
Coding, man.
The whole point is just register once, like when you drive on the toll road, right? You don't worry about driving on the toll road. That's really the concept.
I guess like when I go to Boston, I'm not gonna download the app. Yeah.
It's the beauty. There's no app to download. We're not taking any real estate on your phone.
Yeah, I like that about it. An anti-app. As a tech company founder. Too many apps.
Well, I guess if we're gonna adopt a recommendation, as long as it is mostly revenue neutral, I think that we should be able to determine something from that. I think some of us might prefer to like see how those numbers work out, but I don't know if that's necessary.
Well, so we can move ahead. Can we vote? And do we need
Well,
unanimous?
can we check and see if there's any, double check and make sure there's no public here, because there's a public hearing component to this.
There are no members of the public.
No, okay. I know Chip has a question he's been dying to ask, so.
Just want to ask about the flexibility of the cost, if we're looking at a performance pricing model and we go with this scenario 2, and then we find that garages are, 100% occupancy. Is there a cumbersome process to raise the fees, or conversely, if they're is there an adjustment? I find that
You're seeing it in real time, Jen.
but I mean, are we locking in that some flexibility moving forward, or are we doing this again if we have to? Because my sense is, I don't get anybody complaining about the cost of parking. I get people complaining about raising the cost of parking.
Yeah.
So the more quietly we can do that, based on performance.
Yeah.
So if we do determine that these prices are too high or too low based on performance, this group comes back and makes recommendations. And we have
We just need.
a public hearing that
Yes.
we've just asked for.
Yeah, my feedback is yes, except I don't like showing the transaction fee. I think people are gonna get annoyed about that. I really think. If they know it, they're gonna be like, what? I'm paying more for parking? I didn't even realize it until you told me, So that's something I would say. I would find a way to hide that.
Piggyback on that, I put it on the sign. Well, I put it on the sign too, like you just have the flat rate, you don't have.
Flat rate, no.
This much for that.
FYI, you're
So I
paying
think
the
you're
spender.
Probably of that.
Fine.
So the only challenge with that, it's not the only challenge, but things like the $3 product. So essentially, our $3 from 3 p.m. to 3 a.m. Is now $3.99. In the way that this has been structured. So we either keep the $3 product and say that there's now a 99-cent transaction fee, or we change that product to it's $3.99 from 3 p.m. to 3 a.m. As an example.
Yeah, but we put the cost somewhere else. Can we do that? No, I feel like you're talking about this $3 flat product. Why can't we distribute the cost to other people that might not notice? I just think there's so much value out of the $3. Like people they say like, I go downtown to park, it's $3 to park flat. Like I feel like if we raise the price, people will notice a lot. And if we have a transaction fee, then they'll be annoyed that we pretended we kept the price and then added a transaction fee. Like, I don't think if it's distributed, it will be as noticed, I guess. Is there any way to protect it?
I mean, so the commission could motion to subsidize the transaction fee by lowering the cost of the product, essentially, the 3 for 3 product by 99 cents. So it would basically mean that we would be getting $2.01 for those people who are paying $3 to park between 3 p.m. and because by subsidize, it's not really a true subsidization, right? We're not paying, we're just taking money out of our revenue by lowering the cost of the pricing of parking, right? I know it's kind of a backwards way to think about it, but but that's certainly something that we could entertain, and I don't think that would.
What about 4 for 4?
When you're saying. Say that, well, like, is the city absorbing the cost? Cause that's not what I'm
We're
recommending.
making less revenue from our parking garages, so that's because for all of the people pay for parking, right?
Yeah.
That's revenue.
No, I get it, but I want it to be redistributed at different times of the day.
Well, so if we want to advertise that 3 PM to 3 AM is still $3,
Yeah,
then that means that we are reducing our revenue, the city's revenue on that product by 99 cents that we are currently receiving. So that's not a revenue neutral proposal.
yeah.
So that's the challenge in this dynamic is their users are paying for this convenience of having a gateless system. We are reducing our costs to a certain extent because we no longer have to have the on-call contract. We don't have to be dispatching and staff out there on a regular basis.
But we're not saying, Stephanie, you're like saying maybe at 4 for scenario 2, 4 hours instead of 550, make that 6. 5 hours, make that.
Yeah, but yes, and I think it's not a 1-to-1 ratio, because how many people are using the 3 to 3 versus 4-hour partners? Probably not that many, so to reduce the $3 to $3, you might not need to raise the
Yeah,
more than 25 cents to match that. But I think that would require a lot of analysis. I would argue that keeping that 3 to 3 to 3 is important because we get so much feedback about employee parking. And that was a really effective solution, especially when we said, here's the skip fill out there, nighttime employees. And it was a very creative and effective solution from the city. And I would hate to lose that. So if there is a way to absorb that somewhere else, I would be in support of that.
I think also people like deals.
I would like you to
Yeah.
please strike, I guess,
Yeah.
Chip, we appreciate your input. But I also want to make sure that we are hearing from our city council appointed commission. So the path that we're going down requires a lot more analysis to understand the cost implications of these proposed changes. This is where our recommendation is to only change the price of the first hour. Acknowledging that all the prices of all of our other products now come with a 99-cent transaction fee, even the first hour. If we can't come to a decision today, we are still moving forward. We have a capital improvement program that says implement gateless last year. So we are still moving forward with that. If we can't come to a decision on pricing, then that means they don't change. The action that we need of the commission is whether or not to adjust prices. We have not taken the time to analyze every single possible scenario, and that's only based on current usage. So there's a lot there are a lot of variables in how people are going to be using the garages after we've removed the gates. Our recommendation is we communicate, gates are gone, there's now a 99-cent transaction fee. In the event that there's a mass mutiny, that folks are really upset, then we can take a look at that. We either need to keep prices the same, and we're looking at that top row, where there's no change to the hourly rate, the flat rates. Just everything comes with the 99-cent transaction fee. Scenario 2, in order to meet some of our marketing goals around the garage still being the best deal in town, just in that first hour to soften the short-term stay impact of a 99-cent transaction fee, all other things staying equal. Or another scenario where we're looking at having to do a ton of analysis to understand how do we keep some prices the same. And it's not a path that we've gone down, and I'm not sure that we would be able to get to the desired results other than being able to say that 7 hours plus is $15 and the $3 product is $3, no matter what the transaction fee is. And if that's determined, that's what this body wants us to do, we can do that. But I can't say that it's going to be done by the time that we implement.
How long to get the gates up? When are the gates going in?
They're going away October 1st.
October 1 is our, yeah.
Yeah.
So question for the commissioners. Are we all in agreement that scenario 2 is work?
Well, I think we should motion to,
I'm just asking, does it, I think maybe the only thing we're
as long as,
thinking about is the 3-3.
Well,
I don't,
just because people will notice it. Yeah, I mean.
no, I'm not,
Yeah.
no, there's no judgment on why,
Yeah.
but is that the only thing?
I think,
we
I
are-
agree. I
Yeah.
think scenario 2, it's the 3-3.
Can we change the motion to? recommend that? Would
Does
just,
that make it easier?
There's just an element of not knowing what that means for, revenue.
Right.
But we can, I mean, if person's okay with it, we can.
I'm okay with that, acknowledging that there's gonna be a revenue impact.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
and that
with
we need to have
inflation and
more
everything
discussion.
else that's going on, 349 could be the number too, or something.
No, 350. Kidding.
Well, it's like the
But,
$1.99.
yeah, does that help if we-
I'm not saying that like, maybe people feel like it's $1 better experience with the gate list, but maybe they won't. And so it's just public perception is something that just a little more, maybe just that scenario plus thinking about how we maintain that or do something else to help.
I apologize,
Yeah.
I am overbooked this evening. If you don't make a decision tonight, we'll work with it.
Yeah.
Apologies for not being able to.
Well, so
You're okay.
as tentative language, I say we move scenario 2 as is with examination by their team for the 3-3 with
Yeah.
or a secondary recommendation based on preliminary.
We also add in there some investigation and cleaning and cleaning of the garages at the same time. I know it has something to do with it, but we're gonna spend all this money. And then people are gonna say it still smells like urine.
Well, it's into what? Into cleaning the garages? Because we're planning to do a cleanup as part of this.
That would be great. I feel like you launch this new thing and like it could be a totally different, amazing experience in a garage to really change people and convert them to garages.
No, that's
a
very
real
much part of the
opportunity.
plan. We're gonna do a cleanup, we're gonna restripe, and we actually have some changes to flow in a couple places as well.
That's great,
I didn't want to
yeah.
overload the presentation with everything, but I can.
No, I'm saying that because people tell me they don't park in garages for those reasons. And
So they're working on that. So to
So
keep on
then it
this, so we
feels
can, because we are going to be dramatic and I have to leave too to get my kids in a violin concert. So are we gonna?
So can we go back to the motions and we can see how we need to?
All right. I can bring my mouse. I might need to.
This would be the one, but we could say additionally,
Some
like
additional,
further analysis around 3-3. Impossible.
and not
Possible.
possible, leave it open ended, like
Yeah,
maybe
possible.
some days, maybe. It's
Right.
distributed, like we don't have to assume that
we
we're.
talked about that a little bit with what Chip was bringing up, that it doesn't seem like it'd be hard to change that if we
yeah,
get
we
to
could,
a
if you get
different
like
agreement.
put some buttons and it changes, and we just gotta change some signs and stuff, which is a pain. It's,
Is that,
The signage would be important in a consideration if anything were to
That would be
change, if
another
we
cost.
were to change the 3 or.
when are we printing signs?
Sorry, I mean, everything's gonna be dynamic signage, so changing signage rates.
Well, we
I
have
believe
some
they're still
physical
on.
signs outside the garages.
Oh, okay.
That's still,
That have rates on them?
yes.
Really?
Yeah, when you
Yeah.
drive into the
We-
garages, there's static signs. We're also in the process of updating our. But and so those would potentially have them, so they're probably the static signage that would need to be updated. based on the decision.
So I move that, where'd the language go, that we take this one with comma, with additional examination of the 3 to 3B and how a change to that.
3 p.m.
Sorry, I'm going.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah,
With additional,
Would affect revenue.
would balance revenue.
What are the options? To revenue neutral, I would like to know that too. Yeah. Yeah.
And you want to change 3 AM and 3 PM and flip those two. You want to do flip your AMs and PMs.
Thank you.
Oh, I like that better.
High parking.
Yeah, suddenly we're giving away a lot of money there.
Did I capture that?
And, you know, our commission would be happy to have a quick Zoom call meeting if you guys get something at some point, just with preliminary.
I think it needs to be in a public hearing format if it involves a scheduled fee change, so we might need to, you know, do another posting in the Daily Camera and then come back in, what would be July?
Does that give you enough
Include it
time?
in our regular agenda for July. We have another meeting.
Yes, so if it was deemed that there was consideration to change the fees from what's been proposed tonight, then we would just need to re-notice it as a public hearing and we have our meeting.
Or the sign could just say special free
Could
at
it
3
say
PM.
like special days, this price, like you have to have a public hearing to like have special Wednesdays, $3.
If it's going to affect the actual pricing that goes into code, that's where the commission's authority comes in, and that's why it needs to be public.
Sorry, this is kind of a pain for you guys, but is this workable? I mean, I think it's way better than doing a whole mess of
No, this
analysis.
is totally workable and we're happy to do it.
In that case, let's.
I moved this second,
Second,
all A,
hey.
Yay.
any nays? Done, okay.
We do have a second, we
Yeah.
do have a second one, which is the citation fee, I'm so sorry, and then we'll be done.
I move this, any seconds?
Second.
Any all A's,
Hey,
any nays?
were there 3?
No, just two.
There are 3
questions.
There's 3 questions, which was the feedback.
So we are trying my best, but one of these items on here wasn't even scheduled with time. Curbside management update, Chris Hagley. Preliminary budget review, annual budget review, commissioner recruitment, priorities discussion.
There's so many topics.
You
can say it.
86.
The one note that I would like to make on the budget, and maybe this will allow you to table it a little easier. So right now, we're in the middle of developing budget. So we did have a presentation that we could share, talking about what that schedule looks like. The intent is actually to bring forward the draft budget in a joint commission meeting in June. So that's ahead of when we have to submit it formally. That gives us a little bit more time to flesh things out than we would have available currently. And so that's something that we're in the process of putting together. So I don't know if that's helpful to kind of alleviate some of the stress about looking into the budget, which is the hope is to be able to do that more thoroughly in June.
It's fine by me.
That sounds good.
That's
by me.
fine.
Well, I'll move to table that.
Yeah.
Until June.
Seconded. Do have a couple questions about it, but we'll cover it later.
About the curbside management one, I don't know.
Is Chris Haglund here?
Yeah, Christy.
Chris, you've been waiting so patiently.
Yes. And you know, we were planning on roughly around 20 minutes for this, so I'm not sure if we can go through it fairly quickly. It's not the first time the commission has seen our work on curbside management, but I just wanted to make sure that, you know, we can probably chop it down to, what do you think, Carly, 10 minutes? Well, we can try.
Yeah, because I just presented in March at the in-person retreat. So a lot of this is, we can breeze through. It should be fresh.
Okay, so if
That's
that's
okay.
okay, then we'll go ahead.
Can
Is it just an update on the content or is it repeat content?
No, it's an update, and we will be taking our curbside
Okay.
management implementation guidebook to our transportation advisory board in June. At that meeting, they will be voting on a motion to direct the city manager to use the curbside management implementation guidebook to guide city practices in our public right of way. So this is really, your opportunity to hear how we're going to be managing the curb in the future prior to TAB directing the city manager to use the guidebook.
Can we skip to the parts that are new from
I think
March?
we didn't have really any big like issues with it at all, did we?
Yeah, no, I think it's been
I don't
pretty
think-
smooth. What I can just say as kind of a preamble is, this will be an iterative process. We will be looking at a phased approach to making changes to the curb. We piloted some flexible loading zones, which seemed very effective in meeting the various demands of different types of loading and unloading over different periods of time. And so we'll be looking at that. We'll be looking at dedicated places for Uber and Lyft to pick up and drop off people to create more safe environments for that and reduce people, stopping on Pearl Street, or Canyon and dropping people off. But I can assure you that, any changes that the city is going to make to curbside uses, this commission will have an opportunity to provide input on those changes. And so I guess, to truncate this, Carly, do you want to just take it away with the newer items?
Yeah, so we in March did not present on alleys. So this is just preliminary, acknowledging that in the short-term future, there should be an alley access plan to go in greater detail, but we identified some candidate locations for future activated alleys and also discussed alleys in the context of curbside management, of where it's appropriate to take loading from on street and relocate it to the alleys to allow streets to be places for people, whether it be passenger pickup, drop off, or parklets, or on-street parking as well. So that one's new. And then managed parking in two respects. One is kind of where there are blocks that are unpaid or not time restricted within the managed districts, and just making sure that we're being consistent. So we've identified some parameters and criteria to make sure that we're appropriately managing parking, and then locations that don't have managed parking today that aren't in managed districts, how to determine when those should go from free to paid or not time restricted to time restricted. Some ordinance language that's new that this will be going through the full process as well. So you'll most certainly see this again, but just the different topics where we're making just small changes to reference the guidebook and the content in the guidebook. And then we were going to just run through an example of how the guide could be applied per a request we recently got for a curbside pickup drop off, but you've already seen all of the different tools. So we'll breeze through that. Otherwise, I think the new content was primarily alleys and managed parking. And then we have some preliminary findings from the pilot project, but I talked about that at a high level in March.
Yep. And
Maybe my one question around all this is like,
Yeah.
the 5-year vision plan, they were going to activate the alleys and having the ability for people to sit in them and use them for public access too, which in the pictures look great. Meanwhile, alleys are always kind of dirty and grody and stuff like that.
Yeah. Sorry.
So just trying to how to balance what the plan is to make alleys be inviting, but also keeping them off the delivery trucks off the street sounds like that sounds like a more important part, but what can we do to make it so that alleys are inviting still?
Yeah, an alley access plan would really go into those details. So we identified these, they're sometimes full blocks, sometimes fraction of blocks, acknowledging that there still needs to be a place for trash pickup. You don't want to parklet right next to the dumpsters. So looking into factors like that, where there are large commercial vehicles that make for an unpleasant alley environment. So, being strategic in where those activated alleys are, acknowledging that not every alley is opportune for eating your dinner outside or having a cup of coffee.
I don't know if you've ever visited Fort Collins recently, but they've done a number of different alley activations, and it's really just a handful of them, and created new little environments, and also created kind of some new pedestrian ways to go through their downtown.
Like we have a nice one, that one from near St. Julian Garage.
Oh.
That's an alley, right?
Yeah.
The one that goes to Pasta J's.
Yeah.
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 So I guess I'm looking for, as we're activating alleys for actual work, how can we also make them inviting too?
Yeah.
Well, great. Thank you for your time. And I apologize having to cut you short after you had to wait so long.
Oh, no worries. We totally understand. And that's why we're gonna go to TAB. We're going to all the other commissions. We are, and then, once TAB advises the city manager to adopt these guidelines, then we'll be using these to look at any proactive or reactive changes to the curb. So, for example, Hapa is moving off the mall. They're moving where I guess it was Eureka. They said, hey, we'd like one of those flexible loading zones near us. And so this is a perfect opportunity for us to use the tools that we've created to say, all right, is it warranted? How many other businesses could take advantage of it? Are there any other loading zones nearby that this would be, duplicative of? So, that's just an example of some of the ways in which we'll move forward with this once it's adopted, and thinking about how do we best respond to business requests? How do we respond to data if it's data driven, like the pricing and stuff like that for related to some of Sam's work. So, but thank you for your time.
Great. Well, thanks for processing. That is great.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Have a great night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So the two 9, B, and C are part of the same aspect of the June finance meeting, preliminary budget review and joint CD annual budget approval meeting. We can combine those together. Commissioner recruitment.
I can speak on that, just the highlights. I did include the timeline in your packet. And important dates to know, May 29th, commissioner applications will open online through the website. As of right now, nothing's showing. It's just saying there's going to be a mid-year recruitment. So that will start on the 29th. It'll go through June into July 2nd, and then we'll know kind of mid-July how many applicants passed the review in order to qualify for interviews. So we're really not going to know anything until July, but we'll be actively accepting applications all through June till July 2nd. And DMC has one vacancy, property owner / representative. So we hope.
And are you doing any marketing campaign to the business owners, or how do they know about it?
Yeah, I know that of course, on the website, it's
Are you doing
on
it?
every single commission too.
Yeah, if you guys, I asked my business owner, not our business. I'm trying, but I feel like we need some mass effort.
Yeah, Chip, that would be great if you could.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great.
One,
Well,
but two.
matters from commissioners. Now, I can't do this right now. I have to go. It's so important to me. But my thoughts around this is they did update our blurb down here at the back. And I just want to make this Yeah, that. I want. Maybe this is something we do through Lisa.
Yep.
We do that.
But I'd love for you all to provide Lisa feedback. As to these points. And I've outlined kind of. The notes that we took through the minutes. I think what they have is close, just to start the conversation. But I think we had a visionary for next phase of downtown, especially with working from home and that impacts of that. Safety, now that's not included in those bullet points that are there. Collaboration with other groups, that's highly important to me because we can only be so effective. We can really just provide input. So how can we bring others together? And they did address that there. City review speed. Not a lot we can actually do for that through our board, but that is an outcome.
Review.
Business reviews and like when people are renovating their spaces and
Like building.
yeah, building.
And I do want to just point out that in the packet, there is some additional, I guess, clarity that Chris has put together around those. So I don't know if that helps provide any additional or two.
Oh, okay, so the bullet points
So I think
necessarily reflect that.
So I think what he was doing is trying to take the notes that came out of the retreat and trying to put it into a format that could be approved as a priority. So if there are things here that are still missing the mark, that's maybe where we can.
Yeah.
So maybe this is what needs to go back and forth. Thanks for pointing this out. Maybe this is what needs to go back and forth through Lisa, so we can all comment on our thoughts on this.
Yeah.
Because they have also this, there's this, but then they also did write it into like.
Yeah,
prior.
I think that the priorities feels different than this. It doesn't exude the same focus to
So in
me.
a way.
Yeah.
It almost have us like write out our own version. And we kind of like comment to that to each other
Of the bullet points.
of the bullet points of like, how do we take this and put it in?
Yeah.
So if Lisa, if there's some sort of like action items thing you could follow up with us to drive us to do it, because we're
Yes.
kind of rushing right now.
I'll follow up and.
And connecting to other areas was one of the things we talked about. One thing that I would ask Lisa, I don't know, we oversee capital properties in downtown. I don't know what they all are. Because I keep hearing how we have like office spaces that we rent out and stuff too. Could you give us a list of like what we're actually responsible for?
Yeah, and I can just quickly, high level, we have retail spaces at 1500 Pearl, so the primary, the base level, and then Community Vitality is technically a tenant to Cajun in that space on the third floor, and then we also have tenant spaces over both on the ground level and the second level of 1100 Spruce. So, and I'm happy to put together a list of who those tenants are and.
Yes, I would love that. That's perfect. That's really what I'm looking for. Thank you. And then the last one was bringing students downtown. You know, is that a priority for us? Is that something that's something we talked about? Justin particularly brought up.
Well, I mean, I think that's kind of engaging with all the other districts, as it were, like the Hill, the university is part of that discussion, but it's also, you know, those other corridors coming from like Junction and North Boulder and things like that. So I think that's kind of inclusive in that.
In a way, that's
in
part to me,
umbrella.
that's conduits, but then also making us a destination
Right.
to come down to.
So one of the things I would ask you about is the survey feedback. Should we read that and reconsider adding anything to that? I mean, I thought that was interesting, the comments, not actually the survey, the comments themselves, and it made me think we might maybe have another bullet under the first one, or possibly the affordability around getting people back to the downtown during the office day. So maybe I felt that some of those things could be pulled out and connected to our work.
Please do, you know, because there's a lot to suss through. So
I thought the comments were, I recommend reading the comments, actually skip the survey. Just reading the comments. Because there's a lot of color that I think,
It's a great survey.
yeah. Did you do that?
It weren't my comments, but we asked people, I mean.
I have to run and I'm my apologies. I move we adjourn.
Yes.
Second, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.